Since last October, thousands of visitors have been immersed in the sights, smells, culture, history, and beauty of Japan, without a passport per se. The Japanese Heritage Shoya site, a magnificent 320-year-old, 3,000 square foot house brought to America piece by piece and then rebuilt on 3/4 of an acre at what they call the Huntington in San Marino, California. Our contributing writer, Soji Kashiwagi, sat down with Andrew Mitchel, curator of material objects at the Huntington. Andrew talks about how the house is part of the Huntington estate.
Yeah, so the Shoya House is a most recent addition to the Japanese garden, which is historic. It was built in the early part of the 1900s by Mr. Huntington, and he acquired an entire commercial venue that was a Japanese. It was a Japanese house, and they served tea there, and the house was surrounded by a Japanese garden with accessories in the garden. Mr. Huntington purchased the entire venue, which apparently didn't do too well, went out of business, whatever, and went up for sale. And so he brought the house over here, and he brought the garden accessories, lanterns, whatnot, had a bridge built, had several bridges built, and he created what he called the Asian garden. Had a torii gate, bridge painted orange, and it's a Chinese bridge form, a very rare and old Chinese bridge form. And so this was all done in an effort to attract his wife, who was from the East Coast culture and not really enthralled with living a frontier lifestyle in the West. But he built a beautiful estate here for the day and wanted her to be comfortable out here as opposed to living at a hotel or something when she's out visiting. So the Japanese garden was an attempt to attract her. From what we know, it didn't work.
Andrew talks about how this project came to be from the benevolence of the Yokoi family.
They donated it, and at the time they were hiring caretakers to come and look on the house and maintain the basic functionality of it, so it wasn't, leaking and make sure any running water on the property was working properly. They did have modern toilets attached to the house. So I think the upkeep expense and the fact that their generation was in the position it was made them think about the possibility of have a second life somewhere else. And because of the relationship they had with the Huntington community, that they heard about the possibility of the Huntington bringing an old house over and rebuilding it. So that was their relationship with the project in the beginning. And we had a sense that even though there were many old houses available in Japan, as we progressed with the project, we just had a sense that this house wanted to be here.
Next, Andrew gives us a tour of the gatehouse.
This is the gatehouse portion of the feature, and this was used back in the day as housing for servants that served the magistrate or shoya of the area, and farmers would bring rice taxes. Every farmer was charged a certain amount of tax according to what he had the potential to produce that he paid in rice. So often the size of this gatehouse was determined by the relative wealth or rice production of the magistrate, the samurai, or whoever it was that was ruling or leading in the area.
Next, Andrew gives us a tour of the house and its features.
The Tsukiya architecture is one of the most modern examples in this period of time of architecture, in that it uses things like sliding panels to layer, as it were, the protection from the elements and the facilitating privacy, control of light. Chairs in here so somebody could sit down, lay down, rest, whatever. And if you look over here, right up here, you'll see a grill. And so the dignitary or guest who did not want his presence known to whoever else was visiting could communicate from the samurai room to this next portion of the attic, which was accessible from the servant quarters, with a fold-down staircase. We've removed the fold-down staircase just to show people, but there's a hinge structure here, and this fold-down staircase would fold down, and servants could go up into this room, which had a stair-step tansu that you climbed up, and you could look out a grill that opened to the outside with a view of the castle on the castle mount. And so smoke signals or lantern signals could be relayed from the castle to the Shoya House to communicate with the people that were there for whatever reason.
Andrew talks about the meticulous details of the garden outside the house that replicated the Marugame site it once stood.
Okay, every lantern, every basin, the shrines, every stone in this garden was mapped in Marugame in Japan and referenced to the house and to one another, and then brought over and placed here on site in San Marino, just as it was in Japan.
Beyond the lure of the Japanese aesthetic that the house provides, Andrew reminds us of the practicality of the structure in its environment.
And that it had a function that was beyond its class status, like we could have maybe purchased a samurai house, which is more valuable. But for the purposes that are revealing themselves in the use of this house here at the Huntington, we're finding that the ability to inspire, influence, and teach sustainability is a much more appropriate use and function for this project than, let's say, a class structure focus, i.e. a samurai house, or a simply wealthy person's house, a very nice aesthetically house. This is more of a functional house. And it's turning out that that has been a good choice, because people are inspired, encouraged with regard to learning sustainability.
You can visit the Shoya House Wednesday through Monday, noon to 4 p.m. Parking is free, but there is an admission fee for the whole site. Please visit the website huntington.org, Japanese Garden, Shoya House for more information. This is Greg Valoria for Soji Kashiwagi for the Nichi Bei Cafe.